read, I would be happy to share additional information, and I would welcome your questions. Thank you very much.
Спасибо огромное. Бархатов Халсип. Можно задать один вопрос. В каких отношениях ваша ассоциация с отраслевыми ассоциациями страны и Европы в целом? У них же тоже есть лоббирующие механизмы отдельно взятых строителей, нефтяников, энергетиков и прочее. Есть ли у вас какие-то общие встречи или общий орган для осмысления происходящего? Спасибо.
Yes, this is a very good question actually, because it comes down to sectors, it comes down to industries. So we have representatives of different sectors in our board. So we sometimes do committee meetings on the different industries, oil and gas, competition, agriculture. This is the next phase actually. It was very important for us initially to have it as much as a professional organization that you can have, to have at least 1 or 2 people employed, to have a full-time staff, and then you can actually start working with other organizations and sectors. What we did in terms of industries, we organized seminars, how to lobby, for example, in oil and gas, or how to lobby for agricultural interests, or how to lobby for European interests. So yes, it's very, very important that your national association of GR specialists broadens its influence and brings in, because you cannot have specialists and 50 people working for your organization, but you can have common interest and then work with different industries to formulate policy positions or policy papers, or develop models how to lobby or who to lobby. Is this answering your question?
Yes. What I personally do share some of the many things you have stated, such as transparency, code of ethics, and so forth. I do tend to share with Dr. Shah what he has said about, maybe because I'm a lawyer, and as a lawyer I will tell you that it's better to have no law than a bad law. Okay? That's number one. Secondly, I would like to point out to you my experience in several of the Central and Eastern European countries. I was retained a few years back by the World Bank to define a framework for the regulation of lobbying in next door Latvia. I produced a report that was about 2 kilos. I spent 3 weeks in Latvia and addressed the SEMA, 100 members. Today we're in 2012, they still don't have law because they believe that it was not necessary to have a law. Let's look at Vilnius. Vilnius Lobbying Association, less than 10 lobbyists. The law is completely wrong. Let's take Hungary. They used to have a law, now they don't have any law. Let's take Poland. They used to have a law. The law was copied based on the United States. What has the United States to do with Poland? Nothing. So what I'm trying to say is that I agree with some of the stuff you say, but I'm not sure, at least I'm not convinced, based on my own experience in many of those countries, that the laws that they put on paper have produced the results that they expected. That's my... what do you have to say about that?
I agree also with you, in part, of course, and I will give you my arguments why we thought that this is the way to go for Croatia as a post-communist country. Number one, we looked at Poland, we looked at Hungary, we looked at all these cases. And we also feared that overregulation will kill the basic idea, basic intention. So we fear this. It's not that we are 100% sure this won't happen. However, we were working within the working group on the law. So we were a member of the working group as the association, which is very important. So we were able to influence some of the thinking. That's number one. Number two, there's a long way to go, as you say, for lobbying in Europe. So, as I said, maybe we will have to amend the law in the next 3 or 5 years. but at least we will have something to amend. If the current law that we are hoping to have in first quarter of 2013 will only have 15 registered lobbyists, I mean, of course, what's the point? As I said in the working group with the Ministry of Justice, if we don't see, we'll have to do something. I think you agree with me.
I know, but if you take, for example, the United States, which I'm very familiar with, you take the Obama administration, if you want to lobby in Washington, don't call yourself a lobby, you don't have to register, you call yourself a consultant, and then you bypass the law. You understand what I'm saying? That's exactly what is happening. Suppose you had a law in Russia, today they would be forcing you to register as lobbyist, call yourself another name, and you can lobby, no problem. This is the problem with regulation, you see?
I see the problem, I understand the problem, and we discuss this problem as well. And we believe that lobbyists who register have to have benefits. They have to have special benefits. For example, why do journalists have their accreditations as press accreditations? They can access any institution with press accreditation. Why would we offer lobbyists a special status in a way? I mean, this is, as I say, it's a long way to go and to recognize the profession, but what we are doing today, it's very, very important. And it's a worldwide phenomenon. It's not just Brussels, Moscow, or Washington. It's happening everywhere. It's happening in Japan, it's happening in Australia, it's happening in Latin America. So, you know, we are the pioneers of the professional lobbying associations, but I believe the lobbyists, they will have to be recognized, they will have to fight for their profession. Look at lawyers, they're so protected.
No, I agree fully with you on what it is that you said. We can all join together, agree to a code of ethics. Yeah. We can all agree together about being transparent and honest and all the 10 commandments that we read in the Bible. There's no problem with that. I'm just suggesting, as I said again, I joined Frank, Dr. Frank Schau. I mean, why should we have regulations? Because if you see, the moment you start, first of all, it's going to be very difficult to articulate the kind of language that will be inclusive enough. You see, you're going to face hurdles, you're going to face obstacles. As Frank rightly said, he pointed out, I mean, he knows the territory here. He's been here many years, so he knows Russia's situation. And I think what is happening in Russia is not unlike what is happening everywhere else. Now, everything else that you said, education, transparency, educating the public, training, I fully agree, fully agree. It's just that be careful when you start talking down to the nitty-gritty of the language, that you don't get caught into a situation that could be backfire and could be working against you, not for you. See? Because then you will be caught and you say, well, I was part of the problem because I participated in the elaboration of the law.
I took the responsibility.
And I think that...
Okay, я хотел бы прервать дискуссию, чтобы у нас сохранилось равновесие, некоторые в парах. Кристиан у нас поддержал Франка Шауфа в том, что закон о лоббизме, скажем так, будет мешать бизнесу, а также лоббистам заниматься их творческой деятельностью по взаимодействию со властью, то я бы лично здесь бы как раз поддержал Натко. Я считаю, что в условиях России закон о лоббизме важен и необходим. И я хотел бы здесь выделить не тот аспект, который выделял Натко, чтобы дать определенным сертифицированным специалистам, которые будут называться лоббистами, какие-то определенные привилегии. Хотел сказать, что закон о лоббизме объективно увеличивает прозрачность. Прозрачность того, что называется лоббизмом, прозрачность этой сферы деятельности. И вот это, на мой взгляд, в России очень важно. Почему, наверное, Кристиан и Франк очень сильно удивятся, что российская власть в большинстве своем, она не заинтересована в принятии закона о лоббизме. И как раз российской власти было бы очень приятно слышать аргументы Шауфа и Кристиана, ровно потому, что по-прежнему эта зона, я бы сказал так, не очень понятной деятельности, как оставалась в тени, так и будет оставаться в тени, если не будет принять этот закон о лоббизме. Поэтому я бы здесь поддержал Натко, что в условиях России, отдавая уважение особенностям других стран, где этот закон не принимается, европейским, мне кажется, в российских условиях это привело бы не столько к зарегулированию этого рынка лоббирования, сколько просто к его открытию, к его прозрачности.
Hello, Sergey Kostev, Russian Academy of Sciences. Just a quick question. I think that the more important in lobbying regulation stuff is not just benefits, it's law enforcement. Because in America, for instance, fair, right? While the number of registered foreign agents increased, the number of people who are responsible for enforcing the law decreased in this foreign agents registration unit at the Department of Justice. And also, let's look at this lobbying disclosure. Secretary of the Senate and clerk of the House of Representatives simply have no authority, have no power to enforce the law. So, what do you think? What's more important for lobbyists to register? Enforcement of the law or some kind of benefit? Thanks.
You're touching on two subjects. You're talking about the Lobbying Disclosure Act of 1995, which has been amended, and you're talking about FARA, which is the Foreign Agents Registration Act, which is something different. FARA pertains to the representation by US citizens of foreign interest, and they have to register with the Justice Department. This came about, by the way, before the war and during World War II, okay? This FARA, because the Americans wanted to make certain that no one was going to represent some foreign interest without that would be working as a deterrent against US interest. The Lobbying Disclosure Act, from my point of view, is not working. It's not working. As a matter of fact, if you look at the figures, you show a decline every year of the number of people that are registering with the US as lobbyists. And one of the loopholes, as I said to you just earlier, is to declare yourself not as lobbyist, but as a consultant, and you're in business. So you only register if you're a lobbyist, but if you don't call yourself a lobbyist, you're a consultant. The law is not very good. I mean, I have studied all the laws that exist, being they Canadian. When I did my Latvian situation, I compared the UK, where the UK is the onus is not on the lobbyists, but on the lobbied, that is the members of parliament. I compared Canada, I compared the United States, I compared Lithuania. None of the systems that exist today are satisfactory. Not satisfactory, because there are loopholes. You can bypass the law. You will always find some reasons to, it's easy to bypass the law, okay? For example, if you say, well, you have to spend 25% of your time, okay, to register. If to register, you have to spend at least 25% of your time as a lobbyist. Well, you want to put 20%, and that's okay. You satisfy the rule. There are ways that you can, go around the law. That's why I'm against the law. Yeah.
Yeah, just add a few more examples. And this is a great story from Croatia when we talk about FARA, the foreign agents. Let me tell you this story. About 3 years ago, Croatian government hired law and lobbying firm to help Croatia with the International Tribunal Court. It was an American firm. So of course, the contract, which was a very nice contract for the American firm, was declared secret in Croatia. But according to FARA, the American law, this has to be disclosed. So you know what happened? Croatian journalists went to the website. They downloaded the whole contract and published it on the cover page of a daily newspaper. So this is just to give you a different perception of the subject. Now in Croatia, it was very, very secret. You know, for American standards, this is something that you have to disclose. So this is point number one. Point number two, I mean, of course they bypassed. Newt Gingrich bypassed him. Many examples of bypassing. But this winter I spent time with a big American lobbying firm called Patton Boggs in Washington. And I talked to their senior managers and partners. They're all for registration. They're all for mandatory registration. They don't like those people who don't register. They're actually taking their business. They're actually corrupting their profession of lobbying and lobbyists. It's an honorable profession. They've been in business for 40 years. They have 600 lobbyists in their firm. So they want to be on the record. They're actually fighting for LDA to be amended because there's a critical part, and this is the fundraising, of course. People who are lobbying and then fundraising for the members of Congress. So this has to be resolved and amended. And I hope and I'm sure they will be working on this. But to come back to our story, we have to have something to amend. I don't really believe if you pave the way for self-regulation that these things will change. I don't think you have greater transparency. Thank you.
I have the question, the simple question is, here in Russia, I mean, on the background of the Russian experience, what do you want to reach with a law on lobbying? What's the aim? I don't understand the aim, and perhaps you can, as one of those who are in favor of it, explain the aim. Maybe to say 2 or 3 sentences before. I mean, for example, I come from Germany. I worked in German politics before. There is no law on lobbying in Germany. There's no regulation in it. I don't see that creates big problems in Germany, for example. We heard Christian de Fourvois, he referred to the US. There is a law on lobbying. I'm not really aware about a better way of dealing with lobbying in the US. On the contrary, it seems to be worse, although there is a regulation in place. We have seen, as I said before, a light regulation of lobbying in Brussels with the institutions, and Christian de Fourvois is part, I think, of this whole process. But it has not prevented, it's nothing against you, but it has not prevented some cases of corruption, for example, in the European Parliament, which we saw, I think, 2 years ago. Exactly. This is not being regulated by such a regulation. It's a matter of, let's say, corruption being illegal, and if corruption is illegal, a law on lobbyism, for example, lobbying will not help. I'm also not against, let's say, having associations of lobbyists. It makes sense. I mean, it makes sense as in every other profession, presumably, to have exchange on best practices, on promoting, let's say, education, training, etc., etc. But, I mean, there is also competition here. And I'm in favor, I have to say very clearly, I'm in favor of competition. There are good lobbyists and there are bad lobbyists. There are good, let's say, car manufacturers and there are bad car manufacturers. There is competition, and competition should work. And this competition is being, let's say, practiced on the free market, also, let's say, within or with political structures in any given country where there is a pluralistic society, and Russia is a pluralistic society today.
Франк, если этот вопрос был ко мне, то очень коротко. Очень коротко. Факт, что какие-то законы нарушаются или обходятся, это не означает, что эти законы не надо принимать вообще. Это во-первых. Во-вторых, главный аргумент, я его уже высказал, что лоббирование – это некоторый вид деятельности общественно значимой, которое общество должно, как полноправный участник этого треугольника бизнес, государство, общество, которое общество должно видеть и понимать, что в этой сфере происходит. И с этой части деятельности должны платиться налоги. Если уж так цинично говорить, это, конечно, шутка. Не более того, что с взяток, которые берет исполнительная власть за лоббирование тех либо иных видов, соответственно, привилегий для того либо иного бизнеса, необходимо должны платиться налоги, а эти взятки должны превращаться в профессиональный вид деятельности. Это должна быть оплата труда профессиональных людей. И последняя реплика. Мне не очень понятно, как может существовать лига лоббистов, либо ассоциация лоббистов, если само понимание лоббизма как деятельности, оно не является сертифицированным и общественно признанным. Это что? Это такое неофициальное собрание людей, которые просто вот себя называют лоббистами, а такая профессия обществом социально не, значит, принята, я имею в виду, с точки зрения, соответственно, ее деятельности.